Hello and welcome to Chapter 3. Today we're going to do Section 3.1, Pairs of Lines and Angles. So looking at the picture number 1, we're going to start with here, and what we have here are parallel lines. Now with these two parallel lines, I am going to name them. The top one we'll call M, and the bottom one we'll call N. Now, how you can show the reader that lines are parallel, we can put markings. We would put a single arrowhead, or you can do double arrowheads, and this tells the reader that the two lines are parallel. The other way would be writing it, line M is parallel to line N. So this in the middle represents parallel. And that's how you would say two lines are parallel. Okay, let's look at number 2. Oh, before we finish there, don't forget, with parallel lines, they never intersect. They have the same slope. If we were to graph, or if you need to write equations of lines, they have the same slope. And they are coplanar. They have to be on the same plane. Okay, on to number 2. Number 2, what we have here is a picture of parallel planes. And if we want to call the top one plane T and the bottom one plane R, similar to what we did with the lines, we can literally state plane T is parallel to plane R. We do not have any type of notation to place on the picture itself to show that they're parallel. Like the arrowheads we have for the lines, we do not have anything like that for the planes. Okay, and that's number 2. Not a whole lot. So think of it like, excuse me, the ceiling and the floor, parallel to each other. Okay, moving on to number 3. Number 3, here we're going to talk about skew lines. Now, skew lines, think of driving on the freeway and then you go under the overpass. So the street that goes over you. So you never intersect. So important things. Skew lines do not intersect. They're non-coplanar, and I'll show you momentarily. And they're also not parallel. So what does that look like? Well, if we use this line in the back and this line here, those are two lines that will never intersect. Think of the back of your room and the front wall and ceiling intersection. They're non-coplanar and they're not parallel. Okay, so this is an example of skew lines. So far we have parallel lines, we have parallel planes, and we have skew lines. And then that brings us to number 4. Number 4, I'm showing you a picture of two lines that are being intersected by a third line. That third line, this one right here, has a special name. It is called a transversal. 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 That's what that line is called. Now, what is a transversal? Well, it's a line, obviously, but it's a line that intersects. Let's put this over here. A line that intersects two or more coplanar lines. So we can't talk about skew lines. They have to be intersecting coplanar lines. So a line that intersects two or more coplanar lines, it is just called a transversal. Nothing else. And our last picture is an example of perpendicular lines. Now, perpendicular lines, you don't know they're perpendicular unless you have something showing you. So here, if I put a box that represents the right angle, that tells the reader that they are perpendicular. So let's call this one M, this one P, and I can say line M is perpendicular. Now the symbol for perpendicular is an upside down T, line P. So line M is perpendicular to line P. So you have to be aware of what these symbols represent in order to know what you're talking about. So if you see this in a sentence in a word problem, you need to know what it means because you will not always get a picture. That's when you draw a picture. So you need to know this perpendicular sign and the parallel sign. Okay, what do you know about perpendicular lines? Well, most importantly, they form right angles. Okay, they form right angles. Okay, and that's it for that page. Now, I left number 6. It's one picture, and I'll look with a whole blank page, and yes, you're going to fill it up. So what are we doing with this beautiful picture? We are identifying pairs of angles. Now, this might be new. I don't know if you've ever heard of these names of these angles. So first, let's talk about specifics with the picture. Now, the angles that are between the two lines are interior angles, or inside. Interior angles. And I guess we can call the lines A and B. And let's make the transversal T. Okay, and then the angles on the outer parts of those two lines are your exterior angles. Okay, so we have interior angles, we have exterior angles. So where are we going to begin? Well, the first pair of angles we're going to talk about are called corresponding angles. Now, corresponding angles, they have to be sitting on the same side of the transversal and in the same position. For example, if you look at angle 1, it's sitting on top of line A on the left-hand side. So is angle 5, but it's on top of line B. So angle 1 and angle 5, they're sitting in the same position on the left-hand side of the transversal, and they're both sitting on top of their respective lines. Okay, what about the ones below those? So we have angle 3 and angle 7, and they happen to be sitting in the same position of lines A and B on the same side of the transversal. So we also can look on the right-hand side of the transversal. So we have angle 2 and angle 6. That's a special pair. And then we have angle 4 and angle 8, our last special pair of corresponding angles. Okay, this goes on to our second set. We have what's called alternate interior. That breaks it down. There's only 4 angles on the inside. Alternate interior angles. Now, alternate means I'm alternating across the transversal, and they have to be interior angles. So we're limited. So angle 3 and angle 6 would be a pair of alternate interior angles, as well as angle 4 and angle 5. Now, can you look for these? Right, if you look for, so I'm going to show you what to look for. A Z. If you look for a Z, you'll find your alternate interior angles like this. So let me show you on our picture. Don't write this down, but I'm just going to show you. So here's my Z. Z. It's not a perfect Z. And then my 2 angles was angle 3 and 6 were a pair. So that's the Z I'm talking about. Okay. Or it could be a backward Z, like angles 4 and 5. So it could look like going backwards, and then it would be 1 up here and 1 down here. So that's why I say look for a Z, either a forward Z or a backward Z. And that helps you find your alternate interior angles. Now, if we have alternate interior angles, yes, we also have alternate exterior angles. Same situation, but now we're only talking about the exterior angles 1, 2, 7, and 8. So if we look at angle 1, that would match with angle 8, as well as angle 2 and angle 7. So those are my 2 pairs of alternate exterior angles. Special pair number 4. Number 4, these are called consecutive interior angles. Now, some books have a different name for these consecutive interior angles, and which actually makes more sense because they call them same side interior angles. So either name is acceptable because they are both correct. You can call them consecutive interior angles or same side interior angles. Now I say same side interior angles, it kind of makes more sense because we're looking out we're looking at interior angles on the same side of the transversal. So that means angle 3 and angle 5. They are interior angles and they're on the same side of the transversal. Also, angle 4 and angle 6, same side. Now, what do you look for when you're looking for consecutive interior angles? You look for the letter C. Look for kind of a boxy C or backwards boxy C. And where are those angles to be found? One's here and one's here, or here and here. And that is your consecutive interior angles. Now, if we have interior, yes, we have consecutive exterior. And again, instead of saying consecutive exterior angles, it is also appropriate to call them same side exterior angles. Okay, and again, that would be an example, angles 1 and 7, or angle 2 and angle 8. Okay, so these are all of my special pairs of angles when I have two lines and a transversal. Okay, now let me just add a little extra piece of info and a picture. So let's look at a picture. Let's draw one together. Let's see. I'm going to draw a line here, and one here, one here, and one this way. So I drew 4 lines. I will put angle 1 up here, 2 right here, and 3 over here. Okay, so when you have a crazy picture, and this is not that crazy, but it can be a little bit crazy. When you have a crazy looking picture, you should be using your hand to cover up the information you don't need. So, for example, if I'm looking, if I want to know if angle 1 and 2 have any kind of special relationship, yes, they do. Angle 1 and angle 2 are corresponding angles. Okay, if you put your hand over angle 3 in the line that angle 3 is making, or I should say the transversal that includes angle 3, you could cover that up. What about angles 1 and 3? Turn your paper sideways, and you will notice that angle 1 and angle 3 are also corresponding angles. What about angle 3 and angle 2? Well, here's the problem. If you look at angle 3, here's angle 3. It's made with this one and this one. Angle 2 is made with this line and this line. That's too many lines. You cannot determine what kind of special angle they are, or pair of angles they are, because you're using 4 lines. You cannot use 4 lines. Therefore, angle 3 and angle 2 have no relationship. meaning it cannot be determined. Cannot be determined because we don't have any information. This is super important. And the reason we cannot classify them into anything special, it is because, let's just say, cannot classify when you're using more than 3 lines. Using more than 3 lines. So this is super important. Okay, and the reason being, if you look where we started, all of this, every single one of these pairs, I'm only using 3 lines, A and B and the transversal T. But when I get into crazy pictures, if you are to outline those specific angles, and I'll show you briefly, like angle 1 was made with this line and this line, and angle 2, I only have 3 lines highlighted. That's all I need. Once you get into more than 3 lines, that's too much. You are unable to determine the relationship. Therefore, we cannot classify with more than 3 lines. Okay, that's the one important thing you have to remember here. Otherwise, yes, you have to memorize all these. You have to be able to identify special pairs of angles. Okay, and that is all we have for today. 6 important pieces of information, but a lot more than 6 because it's broken down into more. Alrighty, that is section 3.1.